Hello, welcome to this new tutorial. In today's tutorial, we shall talk about Article 17, Abolition of Untouchability. Well, before I begin with the Article 17, I would like to mention you all that I have already uploaded videos on Article 14, Article 15 and Article 16, and I will give their links in the description box. So let us start Article 17, Abolition of Untouchability. Well, Article 17 abolish untouchability and forbid its practice in any form. In fact, practicing untouchability in any form has been made a punishable offense under the law. This provision is an effort to uplift the social status of millions of Indians who had been looked down upon and kept at a distance because of either their caste or the nature of their profession. So basically, Article 17 stress upon the concept called untouchability. Now, what is untouchability? Untouchability is a kind of a social practice which has been practiced in India for a long time before independence, in fact, and even in certain aspects it is still been practiced even after the independence. Well, under this concept of untouchability, millions of Indians have been looked down upon either because of their caste or a creed which they belongs to, or because of the nature of profession they undertake. And for this reason, they had to face a terrible time for their existence. And keeping this into the mind, the constitutional framers of this country have eventually decided that until and unless we abolish the practicing untouchability in this country cannot move forward, cannot move together. And therefore, Article 17, Abolition of Untouchability, became one of the most important tools in the fundamental rights. In fact, today Article 17, Abolition of Untouchability, has given a new hope, has given a new way. In fact, it has given a new ray of a hope for millions of Indians to walk together, to stand in a one line, to join the mainstream of Indian politics or a services or a society by and large. And it has in a way has uplifted millions of people who have been neglected or who have been looked down upon because of their caste or a profession. Anyways, so therefore, to bring some kind of a uniformity within the society and among the citizens, Article 17, Abolition of Untouchability in any form, in any means, has played a most important role in Indian Constitution. Well, moving on. In 1976, Untouchability Offence Act 1955 has been amended and renamed as the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. So basically what I mean to say here is that in 1976 finally the Untouchability Offence Act 1955 was amended. Some new ideas were added on to that, the new concept has been added on to that, and eventually this act of 1955 was renamed. The name was changed to the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955, and therefore under this Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955, any offence committed on the grounds of untouchability are punishable either by imprisonment up to 6 months or by fine up to 500 or both. That means any offence which has been committed by anybody against anyone in our society on the grounds of untouchability, then that person would be punished either by putting him in jail or imprisonment for 6 months, or up to a fine of rupees 500, or sometime both in sense he would be put under imprisonment as well as he had to pay the fine of rupees 500. So in short, this is what Article 17 Abolition of Untouchability talks about. Let me repeat. Article 17 has brought a new perspective in Indian democracy, in Indian fundamental rights, and here it basically talks about eradicating or abolishing of any form of untouchability practiced in any form in India. And if anybody who practice such untouchability, then he or she would be punished under the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. Well, moving on, following are the offences declared under this act. Now, following would be these different offences which will help us to understand like what are those offences which comes under this particular act. Point number 1, preventing any person from entering any place of public worship or from worshipping therein. That means if anybody prevent any person or stop any person from entering into a place of public worshipping because of caste, color, creed, or kind of a profession he or she is into, or stopping him or her from worshipping his or her own god, then such kind of an act comes under the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955, and such person can be penalized and will be punished either by imprisonment for up to 6 months or by the fees up to 500 rupees. So this is the first kind of an offense which is been declared and brought within the purview of the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955, that nobody can prevent anybody entering in any public place of worship or from worshipping his or her own gods. And if somebody does this, then that person would be penalized or punished for such act. Then we have second offense, justifying untouchability as traditional, religious, philosophical, or other grounds. So if any person justify untouchability under the so-called traditions or religious part of it, or under some kind of a philosophical influence, then such person again can be penalized and can be punished under this Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. That means you cannot justify untouchability in the name of religion, tradition, or any some kind of a philosophy. Anyways, moving on to the third offense, denying access to any shop, hotel, or places of public entertainment. That means if any person denies person belonging to scheduled caste or deny him access to any shop or a hotel or a public place of entertainment, then that person violates the fundamental rights of an individual. And therefore, when such rights have been violated, when fundamental rights of a person is been violated, then such person will be punished under the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. That means nobody can deny access to anybody when it comes to the access to shop, hotel, or places of public entertainment, and especially people who belong to ST, SC, or OBC or scheduled caste by nature. Moving on, we have the fourth offense, insulting a person belonging to scheduled caste on the grounds of untouchability. If anybody insult any individual, especially someone who belongs to the scheduled caste, and if that person is insulted because of his caste, that shows the real practice of untouchability. and if such practice have been carried out, then such person would be penalized for insulting the other person on the grounds of untouchability. So that's another fourth important offense under the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. Then next we have refusing to admit a person in hospital, educational institutions or hostel established for a public benefit. If a person belonging to scheduled caste or any color, caste or creed approach to the hospital, and if hospital refuse that person to admit, if the hospital refuse to give him the medical treatment, for such act hospital can be booked, doctor can be booked under the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955 for denying the admission for a person in hospital. Same applies to the education institution as well as hostels which are established for the public benefit. So this is the fifth offense for refusing to admit person in hospital, education institution and hostel. Moving on, we have a sixth offense, practicing untouchability directly or indirectly. Now here, if any person practice untouchability directly or indirectly in any form or in any means, then such person will be penalized and will be punished under the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. And last offense, seventh one, is refusing to sell goods or rendering service to any person. If any person refuse to sell his goods to a person belonging to scheduled caste or person belonging to any other person in a society, and if he refuse him only because of untouchability, then such person again can be penalized and punished under the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. So these are the 7 very important offenses which have been brought under the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955, and therefore any person directly or indirectly practicing, promoting untouchability in society, then such person would be punished under the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. So this was all about Article 17, Abolition of Untouchability. So in next tutorial we shall talk about Article 18, Abolition of Titles. Till then, take care.